Sunshine Tuesday, every Tuesday, home groups. Bible study is one that I wanted to talk about, but I don't want to say too much. So instead of me prattling on, we've been doing, in Energize, we've been doing discipleship. So why should a pastor go to discipleship class? Because he already knows everything. You know, you've been 57 years doing stuff. The first question she asked us was, were you discipled? Or what was your discipleship look like? And I think everyone in our room actually sort of hesitated a bit. I don't know, ask your question. Have you been discipled? What does that look like for you? I'm not going to answer it. Diana, do you want to come up here?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Okay, I've got my notes because I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone what Peter did thousands of years ago. And this is about Peter, the Apostle Peter. Like Dave said, we're doing a course on discipleship, and Peter came up in that course about how impulsive he was, and yeah. But anyway, I'd already written this out 5 years ago because we did a study on Mark in Brian Gray's class, and he asked us to pick a subject that we liked, and I rather liked Peter because, yeah, he really stuffed up at times, and I do too, so I thought I might write about him. So I did. So I'm going to read it because, yeah, I don't want to forget. But anyway, Simon Peter, the disciple of Jesus. The Gospel of Mark, I got a lot of this from, and some historians name this Gospel of Peter. This book is an eyewitness account of the life of Jesus through the eyes of Peter. Peter was born around 1 BC and died around 67 AD. He was a fisherman by trade, as was his brother Andrew. Fishermen in Peter's time were rough and unkempt, shabbily dressed, vile and vulgar usually. They were very strong due to the heavy workload that they had and were involved in. Jesus saw Peter and said, "Follow me." And immediately did just that. He left his job and his wife and family to follow Jesus, no questions asked. But before that, Andrew, his brother, was a disciple of John the Baptist, and he had introduced Peter to Jesus because he told Peter that he'd found the Messiah. So he introduced him. And then when Jesus asked them to follow him, they left their nets immediately and left his wife, family, and to follow Jesus, no questions asked. Jesus renamed Simon. His name was Simon in the beginning, and Simon means a reed blowing in the wind. So he was all over the place. And Jesus called him Peter the Rock. Now, Peter witnessed many miracles while he was with Jesus. Jesus healed his mother-in-law of a fever. Jesus healed demon-possessed man. Jesus healed many people who came to hear him. And Jesus calmed the storm that all the disciples thought that they would perish in. He fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish. And Peter witnessed these and many, many miracles. In Matthew 14, 22, 23, I got this from, Peter was the only disciple that we know of to walk on water. The story goes that the disciples were in a boat and a storm blew up, and while they were battered by the waves and the wind, they saw a man walking on the water. Oh, that'd be a bit freaky. They thought it was a ghost and they were terrified. And Jesus called to them and said, "Don't be afraid, it's me." That's still terrifying that he was walking on the water, but anyway. And Peter said, "Jesus, let me come out to you and walk on the water." And he said, "Come." So Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on the waves towards Jesus. That's very brave. That was very brave. I don't think I could do that, but he did. But when he looked around at the swell and he took his eyes off of Jesus, he started to sink. Just like when we take our eyes off Jesus, the troubles of this world can be very overwhelming, and we will sink if we don't keep our eyes on Jesus. So Jesus saved him. He reached out his hand and he saved him and pulled him back onto the water. Peter and the disciples were sent out to spread the good news of Jesus. They were being disciples. And they were given authority to cast out demons and heal the sick. Peter was the first disciple to recognise that Jesus was the Son of the living God, the Messiah, in Mark 8:29. And Jesus said to Peter, "God has blessed you, Simon Peter, son of Jonah, for only God has revealed this to you. You are Peter, a stone, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it," in Matthew 16:16. Seems that Peter had worked out and gained brownie points with Jesus. I guess he was pretty pleased with himself. I would be. But in the same chapter, in Mark 8:31-33, Jesus told his disciples the terrible things that would happen to him, that he would be beaten, spit upon, ridiculed, and crucified. And this was all too much for Peter, and he told Jesus off. "Far be it from you, Lord. This will never happen to you." And Jesus looked at Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are looking from the human point of view and not from God's." Oh, Peter must have been devastated. He really put his foot in his mouth that time, as we all do. But he didn't get so discouraged that he stopped following Jesus. And sometimes we all need a stern word to pull us back into line. Let's hope, like Peter, we don't just throw up our arms and have a hissy fit. Suck it up, get on with it, and learn from it. Peter also witnessed the transfiguration. Jesus took Peter, James, and John up to the mountain, and they were witnessing the transfiguration in Mark 9:2-8. Peter was privileged to be there. Even after Jesus had told him off prior to this, he was still among the close companions of Jesus. At the Passover, Last Supper, Peter promised Jesus that he would never desert him no matter what the others did. And Jesus said to Peter, "Peter, before the cock crows a second time, you will have denied me 3 times. And that's exactly what happened. "No," Peter exploded, "not even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." And the others said the same. Later that evening, Jesus took Peter, James, and John to the Garden of Gethsemane and said, "Sit here while I go and pray." And they all fell asleep. 3 times Jesus came back to them and they were all asleep. And then Jesus was arrested. And hot-headed Peter attacked the soldier and cut off his ear, not even thinking about the fact that they were surrounded by Roman soldiers. This could have got really messy. Jesus had to bail Peter out again and healed the soldier's ear and told Peter to put his weapon down. The disciples ran, but Peter followed from a distance to see what was going to happen. It was then that Peter was questioned about being a follower of Jesus, and Peter denied it 3 times. And the cock crowed, and Peter wept bitterly. After Jesus rose from the dead, the angel who was sat in the tomb told the women to go and tell the disciples, including Peter, that Jesus lives. And he mentioned Peter specifically. Jesus met the disciples for breakfast on the beach after he had risen from the dead, and he took Peter aside. And he asked Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yes, Lord, I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." And Jesus asked again, "Peter, do you love me?" And again Peter said, "You know I love you, Lord." And Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." And the 3rd time Peter asked, "Peter, do you really love me?" And Peter answered, "Yes, Lord, I do love you." Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and it's like Jesus gave Peter the opportunity to redeem himself 3 times and declare his love. Peter was the first one to preach on the day of Pentecost after the coming of the Holy Spirit and to proclaim Christ to the Gentiles. He endured willingly persecution, imprisonment, beatings, and even rejoiced at the fact that he was worthy to suffer disgrace for the Lord's sake. Peter was crucified upside down, as he said he wasn't worthy to suffer the same death as his Lord. In summary, Peter went from a rough, tough fisherman who denied Jesus and doubted his word to a great man of faith who became one of the boldest of all the apostles. There is hope for all of us. Jesus can turn our lives upside down just as he did Peter's. As long as we have the Holy Spirit in our lives, we can overcome. Thank you. And I didn't even put my glasses on because I type very big. Thank you for listening, and I hope we can all learn from Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
She's awesome. I don't have to say or do anything, really, do I? Woo! Amazing. The more amazing part is she let me bully her into that. It was only Thursday evening. Aren't I a meanie? You better watch out. The Bible says you should have a word in all season. Should we be ready? Okay. Just going to mess with the system here a little bit. How's that sound? That's better? I feel like often I'm a bit of a Peter. I'll explain that with, I want to jump in the boat, flat out. Don't think about it, the consequences. Let's do this. I jump off the edge and it's like, whoa, what did I do that for? And then I quickly back up and go, okay, let me out of here. I want to just give Jesus everything I've got. I just want to follow him, quit my job, become a pastor and just go for it. It's like, yes. I'm not the only one. My wife's done it. Liam's doing it. Oh, we're a crazy family. Crazy as Peter. True? Crazy, crazy bunch of people. And you get to a certain point and you go, what did I do that for? I've kept my sewing machine, my staple gun. I've just cleaned out my shed. And just between you and me, when things aren't too easy, I want to go fishing again. Soon after Jesus came and visited them after his resurrection, Peter does that, the fishing thing, and they've been catching all the fish, 153 fish or whatever it is, and that's one of the stories there. And he jumps out to be with Jesus and talk with him. And then I was thinking about that. Peter was pretty real. Jesus died. There was no faking him. He was your tradie. He was your, don't put that past me, don't put any wool over my eyes person. And he wasn't going to believe that Jesus is resurrected on somebody's say-so because, well, they're a bit emotional, those girls. Or whatever the story may be, right? We don't know exactly, but he's sitting there going, yeah, you know, like, I'm pretty bored. We're not following Jesus anymore. I'm going fishing. And some of the other disciples went, I'm coming too. I think that's symbolic of like, I'm going to go back and be an upholsterer again. I'm turning back. I'm going back to my old life because I don't know what to do now. Jesus isn't right here with me. I'm not getting the feed. I'm not being discipled. I'm not being told how to do this or what to do. And he's dead. So why bother? We thought he was going to raise a kingdom. We thought he was going to become, we had 5,000 I think it is to make a centurion or whatever, an army. We had the numbers, we had everything there, and he turned it down, and then he ended up getting, not that way, he got that way. Worse. And then this person shells out, hey, how's your fishings going, boys? He didn't even call him by name. He didn't say, hey, it's Jesus here. He didn't even say, hey, Peter. He said, hey, fellas, how's the fishing? Yeah, pretty lousy. Been fishing all night, didn't catch a thing. And, you know, like I used to be pretty good at this fishing, and now it's just like not working for me. This total stranger is calling out from the beach and says, "Put your net on the other side." Yeah, like, what do you know? I'm the fisherman, some random stranger on the beach. Put it on the other side. Did you know that on the other side doesn't work? And what's the difference? We've been fishing all night. I don't care if it's on that side or that side. It's like, the fish are down below us. It doesn't care whether it's on our left or on our right. He must have just gone, what the heck? Anyway, I'll please this random person on the beach. Something inside him probably thought, this guy's familiar. So they do, and they catch those fish, and then suddenly there's this awareness that this is Jesus. Have a chat on the beach. Come in, get something to eat. Jesus feeds them. And none of them say, "Is this you, Jesus?" They just know that it's Jesus. They just know that it's Jesus. They know that it's him. And he says, "I'll teach you to be fishers of men." He reinforces that. And then he has a bit more of a chat. I like these chats. And in that chat, he says, "Peter," and that's Diana brought that up, "do you love me?" And that's like, do you love me like a brother? You know? Do you love me? Yeah, you know I love you. Feed my lambs. Feed the little ones. Feed those that are only just born. Look after the lambs. Thought that's interesting. Jesus didn't stop there. "Peter, do you love me?" Slightly different kind of love. Do you love me a bit more than just a brother? "Yeah, no, I love you." "Yeah, yes. You want to hear that word? Yes, I love you." Bit weird, but I love you. "Feed my sheep." Feed my sheep, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. Hang on. Jesus, did you get it wrong? You just asked me to do the kids' church. Now you're asking me to do adult church too. Like, what? And the third time he says, "Jesus, do you love me? Do you love me with the love of the Lord? Do you love me with an everlasting love, the agape love?" And Peter answers it with, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. I can't pull the wool over your eyes. You already know. Why are you asking me stupid questions? It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. But you know I love you. Feed my sheep." And I can never forget that story. Hence, I didn't even open up the Bible. It's stuck in me. It's like, because it's my story to a level where when I was called to ministry, it's like, what am I meant to do? And he goes, "Feed my lambs." And for years, I looked after kids, and I just fed the new Christians and people who were just there. And I always struggled, and I still struggle, how do I disciple somebody? And I've been searching for plans. I've been searching for systems. I've gone to all the different places, and I've looked at the ABCs that we do. And we take somebody, and we first teach them this, and we then teach them that, and we then teach... It's like, okay, but it just never quite gelled. It never worked. People never just came and went from here to there. Even kids. Some get it, some don't. One of the things we learnt in Bible college, in this class, first important lesson, who are we making disciples of? You know, it's too easy in the church to make disciples of the pastor, or to make disciples of the youth leader, or to make disciples of the worship leader. Follow me and I will make you like Christ, because I've ticked the boxes. And we're not. We can be an example because we are trying to be like Christ, but don't follow me. Hopefully I can help you follow Christ. We make disciples of Jesus. That is the mission of this church. So our mission statement, if you want to put it, we have small deeds with great love as a way we do that, but our mission statement would still be the Great Commission. Go you into all the world, making disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Slightly different order, but that works, doesn't it? Basically, making disciples of Jesus. So I learnt in this course we can't really put discipleship into a really simple formula. So I'm sorry, those who went to the course expecting at the end of it, they'll be able to just go ABC, follow this recipe. Cookie cutter Christians, you know, they've got the mission look on them. So the question I asked earlier, were you discipled? Or do you have a way that you could think of that you were discipled? My answer was no, not really. But then I sat in the class and she said, so anyone who was helping you change from who you are, your sinful self, to becoming more like Christ, is discipling you. Well, I was discipled by my parents, my grandparents. I had disciples, I had Sunday school, I had other people. I didn't see them as people that I was following. I used to think it was a little bit like an apprenticeship. You know, you do an apprenticeship, you say, I don't know about you guys, I did an apprenticeship 4 years under my uncle to become an upholsterer. The first 3 years was a waste of time because all you're doing is cleaning the floors, doing what you're told, sniffing glue because you're just spraying it all over things. I was always high on the glue. Those days there weren't the restrictions and the regulations you have today. When I went on holiday, I got crook. It was terrible. I wouldn't be allowed to do it today. Sorry, Uncle John, I'm not dobbing you in. The last year you start being productive. But what I learnt in that 3 years, I carried through with the rest of my life. What I learnt in the 4 years, I carried the rest of my life. It's the little things. It's the culture. It's the work behaviour. It needs to be kept clean. It needs to be tidy. It needs to be done with systems. And you could take almost any tradie, and the same thing would apply in their trade. And when you do a second trade, you could probably learn most of it in a short time because the foundations have been laid in the things that we don't notice. One of the weird things, I went 5 or 6, it was a long time ago, we went to New Zealand and we were with Uncle John in Christchurch and I was sitting there and an old guy came up and he said, hey, Janice, that's Auntie Janice. I don't know you, but Eileen, yeah. Oh, John, how are you? And then he gets to the next guy and goes, John, I thought I just shook your hand. He looked back and goes, you must be brothers. And I'm going, what? He's 20 years older than me. But I had a fair bit of weight on, so I had the same shape. I have the same haircut and a few things like that. And I thought to myself then, I didn't know doing an apprenticeship turned you into somebody. I become a cookie crunch Uncle John. We don't really want that in the church. The process that we learn when we're working with somebody, when they're teaching us how to get the big picture, is what we're looking for. So I did a second apprenticeship, but it wasn't official and didn't have any paperwork. And I don't know if any of you guys would know this, but I went to Pastor Neil when we went to Eden Hill, and I said, I need to do like an apprenticeship in ministry. I've got to go full-time. I've got to get out of this work church life. I've been called to go full-time. And Eden Hill wasn't a very big church. I think when we come along, we doubled the Sunday school. Seriously, 4 kids, made 8, just like that. And then soon after that, we went down the park and flew some kites. Because I'm a big kid, and flying kites is a lot of fun. And just by flying kites, we've got another family. You know, sometimes doing church inside, we're not seeing what we're doing, but we just went out in the park. And anyway, so I did an apprenticeship, and Neil said, feed my lambs. And so I did. I looked after Sunday school, I looked after kids, and then we developed a youth group. And I'd have meetings with Pastor Neil, and I'd watch what he was doing like a hawk. And I was always too busy to preach because I hate preaching. And he'd try to get me to speak, and I'd be there, yeah, I need about another 2 months to prepare for that. And do you know, I still need 2 months. I probably need a year to prepare for a sermon because I still can't do it. Hence my notes. A couple of Bible verses in case I forget what I'm saying. But what is God saying? From Peter's life, he's saying, I like you being exuberant. I like you just jumping in. I like it that you do these things. At least you're getting out and doing it. Go, jump in, swim. I'll look after you. I'll rescue you. I'll bring you out of those horrible places, and I won't forget you, and I won't let you go. I won't let you down. And as many times as you deny me, I'll give you opportunity to stand up and say, I love you, Jesus. And when you want to quit, well, I'll just be standing in the background going, no, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't go back to what you knew because it's easier, because it's safer, because it's a jolly lot easier to pay the mortgage or buy that new car, or the better caravan, or whatever it is you might be desiring at the time. If God's called you, stay called. And it may not be easy. You know, I wish I could say Peter had an amazing life. He did an amazing amount of stuff for God, but none of us would want to swap with him. Even for the fame, even to be written in the Bible for 2,000 years later, to have all you guys talking about it. If I thought people were going to be talking about me 2,000 years later, would I suffer that? No. Sorry, not worth it. I'd rather people didn't talk about me, actually. Especially my bad things. It's all right to speak about the good things. But he stuck. He stayed. And the big thing he said, and the big thing we get, is we hang on to Jesus. We stay in his love for us, his grace for us. He saves us. He brings us into that. And we stay the long haul. And at the end, when he returns, and whether that's your return or the return for the church or whatever that looks like, I still trust Jesus. I don't know. Will I be able to do that? Will I be able to be led in front of thousands of people? Will I be able to be in house prison or prison? Will I still be able to say, Jesus, you're my Lord? Will I trust his Holy Spirit enough to give me the words that I need to speak when I am dragged in front of the courts? I can only hope and pray that I am. And I hope and pray that you are. And I really do encourage you to jump in the boat, jump in the deep end. It's not super crazy. You go through some difficult things, but when he's called you, and you know you're called, when he's asked you to do something and you know you've been asked to do it, it's okay to be a little bit like off the chart. But know you've been called. Know that he's asked you to do it. And he'll be there for you. So, discipleship 101. Talk to somebody. Help them see something about Jesus that they haven't seen. Have you been discipled? A bit more nodding this time. And we disciple each other. And we disciple those people when we go and have a coffee and they're not even aware of it. It's not an apprenticeship. It's helping people to see more about Jesus. And by seeing Jesus, that brings change in them. By seeing Jesus, they go from being selfish, I want, I need, fancy car, fancy house, wages, life, best food so they can get fat, I need all that stuff. You go from that to, actually, I don't need that. I can give a bit away. I can share with others who have less than me. You go to being more selfless about your attitude, about how you help people, about what you think of people. You go to a place where it becomes small deeds done with great love. And we can only do those deeds effectively with the love of Jesus. So that's all I have for today. And the clock has struck exactly 11. How good's that? Whew. So I think, is Hayley going to do us another song or something so we can just wrap up? Can we do something? Spontaneous, like I say, always be ready. And who's on preaching next week? All good. Thank you, Hayley.
Is everything again. Hopefully I can get it right this time. Don't hold your breath.
Just before we start, I'm sitting here and I'm noticing a few things and it's messing with my head.
Go on.
So, there's a loaf of bread here. What does that mean? And then there's a collection thing here. Is that a hint?
I think so.
Am I meant to be passing this round?
I think so.
Give it a bit of a shake. I don't know. Anyway, just so you know, there's these things here. Are they? I don't know. What are they for? Come and tell me afterwards. Thank you.
I think we should pass it around.
Not a hint to me. Okay.
But feel free to pass it around, Dave.
And feel free. Those who are new don't know, but we got that little box over there that says tithes and offerings. We've put it in the most awkward place in the building. We sit people in front of it. We put the cameras in the road. We make it really hard for you to give. Okay, so please give. But if it's too hard, don't bother. And you can go online and you can give. But you know, God blesses a cheerful giver.
Yes.
And so I could get up and give giving talks every week and I'd probably double our income. But we wouldn't double our blessings.
Yeah.
So just as you prompted and as you led, chop it in the box, and I do say thank you, and it does get appreciated. It gets used for what we do here. It keeps this place going. It keeps the mission ticking. It keeps me being fed, other people, so it's appreciated. Thank you.
God of creation took our place. The God of redemption opened the way. The day you gave your life seemed a failure in our eyes, but the stone it rolled away as you walked out of that grave. Let this place erupt with praise. Why do you look for the living among the graves? Jesus lives, all the earth sing out. The power of death has been broken, and this changes everything. God of redemption became sin. The God of salvation changed everything. And the day you gave your life seemed a failure in our eyes, but the stone it rolled away as we walked out of that grave. Let this place erupt with praise. Why do you look for the living among the graves? Jesus lives, all the earth sing out. The power of death has been broken, and this changes everything. Let this place erupt with praise. Why do you look for the living among the graves? Jesus